Let's talk to Lord Daniel Moylan, who's here with us now on the occasion that Joe Biden will visit Northern Ireland and the Republic down in Dublin next week, which is the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Lord Moylan, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, a very historic time, the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Joe Biden, who's decided he's not coming to the coronation but fancies going to Belfast. I'm sure we can all imagine why. It's quite a significant visit, I suppose, but is it more for his own sort of self-aggrandisement than it is for ours?
Well, I think it's a very good thing that the President of the United States is having an official visit to Ireland, and I'm sure that's great. What I don't understand entirely is why Northern Ireland is being hooked into that, because the visual image it sends is that Northern Ireland is really just a part of Ireland. Northern Ireland is, under the Good Friday Agreement, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. It's part of the United Kingdom until the people of Northern Ireland vote otherwise.
Yeah.
There is no sign that they are going to vote to leave the United Kingdom. There is no evidence for that at all. And in fact, even Sinn Féin isn't calling for a border poll because, presumably, I imagine, because they know that they wouldn't win. So I think that he should have visited Northern Ireland as part of a visit to the United Kingdom, which he isn't, in fact, making.
Yeah.
And I think it's rather weak of the government to have allowed this to go ahead in this way that gives very much the wrong signals.
Yes. I mean, I suppose it's difficult when you're in the government situation, because if he was going to come to Dublin and then didn't go to Belfast, that might also be construed as a kind of a bit of a snub to the UK.
Well, then he might have come and made a joint, not a joint visit, but one visit after another, come to visit Ireland and come on an official visit or a state visit, whichever it is, to the United Kingdom as well. And he could have got to the United Kingdom via Belfast.
Yes.
And that's absolutely fine. But the way it looks at the moment, it's playing into this narrative that I think some people in the British government are quite happy with, that Northern Ireland isn't really part of the United Kingdom, it's really part of Ireland, and the sooner we get rid of it, the better. And you can have that view, but it doesn't fit with what the Good Friday Agreement says, which is that it's not a matter for the British government to decide. It's a matter for the people of Northern Ireland to decide in a vote. And we should be sticking up for that and ensuring that they have their say.
But it does show how sort of complex Northern Ireland is, though, doesn't it? Because, of course, the people who are in favour of staying in the EU say, well, we voted to remain in the EU in Northern Ireland. And that's why perhaps when Rishi Sunak went there, he was busy telling them all how great it was that they could be in the single market of the European Union as well as being in the British single market, which kind of rather kiboshed his own plan.
Well, there's a distinction of some importance there, Mike. They didn't vote to stay in the EU because that question wasn't on the ballot paper. There was no question saying, should Northern Ireland stay in the EU? The question was whether the UK should remain in the EU or leave. And they voted for the UK to remain, and they didn't win. I mean, there are lots of places in the United Kingdom that voted to remain, but they didn't win. London, for example.
Yes.
The majority of people voted to leave, and that's why, and that's fully in accordance with European Union law. It's like saying a unionist, you could well imagine a unionist in Northern Ireland, somebody who supported the union, I don't mean a member of a political party, I mean who supported the union, said, yeah, it suits me to stay in the EU and I'm voting to remain. I never meant by that I wanted for Northern Ireland to remain and stop being part of the United Kingdom and be cut off from it. I never voted for that.
No.
I voted for the whole of the UK to remain. I lost. I accept that vote. Now we should all leave. That's what the referendum was about.
Sure.
So this idea you were voting for Northern Ireland to remain in the EU is just wrong.
Well, it's not wrong. It's a matter of interpretation, isn't it? Because, for example, it is in a way.
On the ballot paper.
Yeah, no, I get that. But, I mean, if they were to ask the question a different way, we could only speculate on what would happen. But what we can do is we can say that the Tory party has certainly moved away from that position because when the vote took place on the Windsor framework, there were very few people who voted with Boris Johnson in the Tory party, which I would imagine was disappointing for him. And most Tories voted for this particular sort of what I would regard as a rather halfway house solution to Northern Ireland. Moylan, because I'm more on your side on this than you probably think. You know, I don't think that this idea that they're in two different markets is the way that the vote should have ended up. You know, they should have been out of the European Union, as indeed is the rest of the UK.
It's a matter of living under foreign laws in which you have no say,
Right.
which is almost the definition of colonialism.
Yes.
And there's only one other place I can think of in modern Europe that lives in those circumstances, and that's the Donbass. It is living under foreign laws with no democratic say, and nothing in the Windsor framework has done anything to correct that. So I agree with you. I think I voted against it in the House of Lords. There were even fewer of us voting against it in the.
Do you think it's just a matter of people becoming sort of a bit bored with it all, and so they've just gone, oh well, let's just sort it out?
I think most Conservatives want it to be the solution. They want to believe that this is the solution. The government said it was the solution. They'd like to believe that because they'd like the whole thing now quietly to go away, and we can forget about Ireland or Northern Ireland at least as a problem and start concentrating on having better relations with our European partners and friends, as they call them, which is the way many of them actually think. They're not very good partners or friends, though. That's the trouble. They've become quite hostile. Yes.
Well, as we found from our latest report from Dover, they've actually managed to put a few more people on the French side of checking passports. And today, apparently, it's taking hardly any time at all to get through the Dover passport control. So for all those people who were moaning on about it being Brexit, it was just about the French not giving us enough people to take care of all the people going through. But one more final thing, just to ask you, Lord Moylan, before you go. You've retweeted today Lord Wolfson, who's had quite a bit to say about Rishi Sunak and this Labour Party attack ad, which is horrendous in my view, one of the worst pieces of political libel I think I've ever seen. What do you make of it?
Well, it's amazing when you get John McDonnell, for example, and you're in the Labour Party saying it's got to come down. I mean, an awful lot of Labour supporters, journalists and people like that, are demanding that it come down because they're so shocked by it as well. I retweeted Lord Wolfson because he's a very distinguished lawyer, and he made some very good points, which is that sentences are passed by judges according to the circumstances of the case within national guidelines, but the actual sentencing is done by judges. If there are cases when people commit crimes but don't get a jail sentence, presumably that is because the judge, having looked at all the facts of that particular case, thinks that's the appropriate sentence. There's nobody in government telling judges you've got to release or you've got to let so many people go, and to try and blame it on any politician is just...
Right. Well, it's apart from anything else, it's wildly...
Someone who used to be director of public prosecutions, as Keir Starmer was.
And he's gone very quiet on it today. I presume it's not because he's doing the Stations of the Cross. I presume that he's just sort of lying low. But the bottom line is that even Twitter have put a correction out to say that the current sentencing guidelines for this crime has a maximum sentence of 14 years imprisonment. And to allude to the fact that that Rishi Sunak, as an individual, does not want convicted sex offenders who've assaulted children from going to prison is an absolutely astonishing thing to say.
I don't know where it came from. What amazes me is that they seem to be doubling down on it, and they should, of course, have taken it down immediately, blamed a junior clerk, sacked somebody, and pretended it never happened.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lord Moylan, thank you very much indeed for your time. Good to talk to you. Lord Daniel Moylan, a Conservative peer, on the problem that still persists in Northern Ireland, and that is that it's part of Europe, the EU that is, as well as being part of the UK.